by DCS Global. Just to notify the meeting is being recorded, and the consent myself. And sorry, 1 second. And I wanted to welcome all of you on behalf of DCS Global to this excellent webinar on the big reset in cleaning management. We're going to jump right in a moment, but what I'm going to first do is ask our panelists each to introduce themselves. I'll just do it in the order that I have here on my screen. And I'll just note as well that we're really pleased that all the panelists today are also members of the Janitorial Needs Assessment Committee, which Randy Burke chaired and which was a joint initiative with DCS Global and BOMA Canada. So thank you for your volunteer work, panelists as well. So Kimberly, could you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Kimberly Train. I'm with Oxford. I've been with Oxford for almost 24 years, and actually I'll be shifting over to the OMER side of the business in about a week. So, so there you have it. I'm responsible for procurement for Oxford.
Wow, congratulations, that's amazing. Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Schroers. I'm with GWL Realty Advisors, and I run the property management for our portfolio in the GTA and our corporate properties, our Canada Life corporate properties across Canada.
Thank you. Marlene?
Marlene Farias. I've been at Triovest for 20 years, responsible for property management in Ontario.
Scott?
Hi, Scott McBrain with Cadillac Fairview. Been with Cadillac Fairview over 30 years.
Oh, we just lost your audio, Scott. Can you hear us, Scott?
My mic just kicked out. I currently head up our central property operations group across Canada.
Awesome. And Randy?
Yeah, Randy Burke, DCS Global. We're independent cleaning consultants. We innovate solutions, project manage programs, and validate service delivery. I got to say, in over 20 years we've been in business, we're proud to be a contributor with BOMA Canada and the cleaning industry. So thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks. That's awesome. So we've got a lot of people on the line, and we're going to jump right into our first topic in a moment. But just to say that you can use, I believe, the Q&A function if you want to pose questions to our eminent panelists, and there will be time at the end where I'll try to get some questions from that function and put them to the panelists. So there's an opportunity there. But with a view to jumping right in and using our time as efficiently as possible, Kimberly, maybe we could start with you. You know, COVID has raised the profile and importance of cleaning services like never before. What are you looking for from your cleaning vendor partners with a view to reducing risk and increasing safety in your buildings?
So the quick answer is that I'm looking for a partner who can be flexible and collaborative, forward thinking in terms of adoption of innovation, and be open to providing reporting to affirm contractual fulfillment, and provide us with documentation to share with our customers on actions, products, and sanitization results to comfort their employees. Now, the long answer is, everybody wanted the short answer first, right? And now you can just shut down. You don't have to hear the rest of what I have to say. So I'm here for comedy. Isn't that why you asked me? The long answer is, due to COVID, most of our contracts shifted to a variable structure in the spring of 2020 to better control our labor and manage the focus on cleaning for health. At the same time, our customers were also understandably requesting confirmation of what cleaning has taken place in terms of tasks, products, and hygiene results. Historically, the only reporting we could provide was buyer-deployed robotics, which confirm where, what, and when they cleaned, and their productivity statistics. We didn't really have any other formal form of statistics. So I hope to see more robotics engaged in our portfolio in the future to allow the labor we do have to focus on the high quality work required that can't be automated. One way Oxford has visibility into labor is through our washroom occupancy sensors that dispatch cleaners when occupancy targets are triggered and track a cleaner's arrival and departure in that space. The piece that's missing, though, is a confirmation of what actually took place by those cleaners when they were in the space. Ideally, we would have running audits to verify high touch point surfaces are safe, and we could produce those to our customers who are requesting that information either within our tenant portal or just upon demand. So in the end, landlords like myself and our customers want assurance of the duties and products engaged that support cleaning for health for their employees. One last note, and I promise you it is my last note, is managing variable contracts is much more hands-on for our site teams than our previous fixed contracts. And we require both parties to be flexible and adaptable. Any automated reporting tools that can confirm labor and actions taken by the staff will help both parties in the relationship. Disclosure and transparency are welcome in this new environment. And there you go. That's my answer for that one. I promise.
There's a lot there, and much more content than comedy, if I may say. So there was a hint of that too. Who wants to respond to something that Kimberly said?
I like what she said about technology, because I think that that's the future. We have to be able to follow up on what our service providers are telling us is happening. And everything now is being controlled by technology. And the more we can use it, not allow it to oversee that these are real people doing the work and these are real people we're partnered with, but the technology, we need to be able to use the technology. Our tenants are getting much more sophisticated. They know exactly what they want. And that's within their rights. They should ask for what they want. But if we can't provide it, if we can't say exactly what Kimberly said, we might know those cleaners are going in there, but we don't know 100% what they're doing. So yeah, well said, Kimberly. I thought that was great.
Here.
And funny.
Oh, so they pay me for.
I think all I would add in is a contractor that is innovative in the products they use. I think there's a lot of products that come to the market to help reduce the risk of COVID and the spread that aren't as labor intensive as the traditional products, and that they're using those and testing and validating those as well, is also valuable, because it is trying to manage labor, but also trying to do it in a safe manner. And there's lots of innovation just around products over the past 8 months.
Great point. Any other comments?
I do align with Kimberly on the technology front, but we have to go sometimes beyond technology, looking at labor standards, really looking at policies, looking at training beyond just policies. That's at the forefront right now with ESG. So it's really a marriage of both areas.
And I would just say that, you're nailing it. It's all about reporting, dashboards, service validation, KPIs. And, we're working on several different models on dashboards, but if you can get everybody working on the same one, Maximo, Angus, or whatever, then it's easier for, property managers, contractors, consultants, whatever, to work with the same playing field, and the language is all the same, and you're not doing so much integrating. So I think there's been some advantages in merging technologies, and I think the more we can track and audit and such, then we're going to end up getting proofable results.
Cool. Thanks, guys. We're off to a great start, and we'll move on to the first polling question in just a moment. But I will note that we have our first two. I can see. I'm not sure if the audience can see or not, or my co-panelists can see, but we have our first two questions posed to us in the Q&A. So I want to encourage the audience, which last I heard numbers over 100 people, and probably higher by now that we've gotten going, to send your questions in. I'm glad that our panelists today are provoking these questions for you. We'll get to them towards the end of today. So maybe I'll just ask the first polling question to come up on the screen, please. And there it is. And the question, which you guys can see there, is your cleaning program ready for substantial reoccupancy in your buildings? And the choices there in front of you are no, not ready at all. Second one, still working on it. And last one, you are super sanitized. And it tells me I can't vote, so I'm not going to vote. we'll give it just a moment for the audience to respond to the question, and then the results will come up, which will help inform the discussion of our next topic. Just give it a second more for everyone to finish working, and then I assume we'll see the results pop up in a few seconds more. We should have had the Jeopardy theme song ready for playing.
Don't ask me to sing it.
He does comedy.
That's right. That's right. And here come the results, I think. And here we go. So I'm not sure if the audience can see this or not, but only 3% of you say that you are not ready at all. 45% say you're still working on it, and 52% are super sanitized. And a spitball number here suggests 89 of you responded to the question. So it's pretty good engagement levels already. So there you go. So a teeny fraction not ready at all, but roughly half and half between still working on it and a few more on the ready to go. I'm just going to close this up so we can move to our next topic. And Scott, this one's going to be to you. And Scott, as you may know, little pitch for a BOMA Canada program here. We're very close to moving into piloting a new program we're calling BOMA Best Clean Companies. So everyone knows BOMA Best Sustainable Buildings. You may have heard about BOMA Best Smart Buildings, which is also going into pilot very soon. BOMA Best Clean Companies is going to be the first program of its kind by the commercial real estate industry, by you guys, for the commercial real estate industry, for you guys, but aimed at ensuring that janitorial firms are meeting your standards and your needs. So that at the same time as the sort of standardization is coming through programs like ours, you're also starting to see greater flux with respect to scheduling, visibility, on-demand services, and the like. So Scott, kick us off on a discussion, please, about what steps you are taking or you recommend to prepare your buildings and our buildings collectively for what I think we could call the new normal, or as DCS calls it, the big reset.
Yeah, thanks, Benjamin. I guess this is building on what Kimberly talked about earlier, but this is about communication with the tenants and communication with your service provider. The notion that there's going to be one big switch and we're all going to be back in the office, I think we know that that's not going to happen. There will be a transition to work back to the office. So how do we understand what our tenants are doing? How are they scaling back into the office? And at the same time, can we map that to with the janitorial service providers, and they're scaling back into the office and preparing for that work. So it is very much a dialogue almost on a daily basis, but certainly on a weekly basis, as we're getting information from the local governments as what restrictions are going to be lifted and when, so that we can understand what the potential maximum occupancy could be in a building and enclosed spaces, and then what the tenant's individual work back plan is. I think another key point is also with communication with the tenants is understanding their expectation of clean. So there was lots of added services and stuff sort of pre-shutdown and even through the COVID restrictions because we had capacity with staff. Now, as we're ramping up, is everybody aligned as to the expectation is to what the landlord is providing, to what the tenants may have to supplement their costs or buy their costs with their health and safety programs that they're communicating to their employees. So there's a lot of, if I don't stress enough, there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of talking. We talk about where PropTech can help, this notion of occupancy sensors, more real time, who's coming into the building, who's occupying the elevators, et cetera. So there's lots of work going on in the space right now as we're looking at those types of sensors and how can we integrate them and communicate with our janitorial staff as well, more real time. But I think a lot of our properties, a lot of properties aren't there yet with technology. So the simple solution that I think most people are using today for when a desk is occupied is a card, please clean my desk. And, when the staff is done, they flip it over, your desk has been cleaned or been sanitized. So there's some very basic stuff you can do without technology, and certainly the technology just makes it a lot easier and prettier when communicating that to the tenants.
That's great, Scott. Who wants to jump in and respond or agree, disagree, and so forth?
I'll jump in. How's that? I'll even try to behave.
That's difficult.
Don't do that.
Okay, fine. Yeah, we've engaged the card system, like what Scott said. I totally agree with you. We don't have full occupancy sensors within all of our tenanted spaces. It's really just washrooms right now where we focus the attention on, and really only as counters. We don't monitor, toilet paper use or any of those things, because in the end, from our perspective, what we need is to send the cleaners when they need to be based on the occupancy of the washrooms, and not necessarily because stall A has been used more than stall B, right? I do believe in broader rollouts of this technology. It's just very, very expensive. And some of the problems that we've had is the implementation of the sensors has been a little bit of a rough go, I'll be honest, where there's overlap in what is being sensed depending on where the equipment is being put, or there's these gaps of knowledge because of just because of how the buildings are actually configured. So you're either overcounting, you're undercounting, or worse, not counting at all, because the equipment goes down and the person who supplied you with the sensors doesn't come for 3 months to replace the equipment. So it's funny. Innovation is great and technology is great, and I'm a huge believer in it. But if you can't do the fundamentals of how you actually roll out that equipment, then there's no use in having it at all. So I just thought I would throw that out.
Good point. I would add, Scott, I agree with what you're saying about tenant expectations, because we've noticed a change recently in our conversations with our tenants to say that originally it was very much about focused heavy duty cleaning, and anytime there was a positive case, battalions of people would come down to make sure that things were cleaned. And you have to follow the science. You have to, and they're now saying that you don't need to do that. And why were we wasting money? Randy helped us see this, but why were we wasting money cleaning certain areas that hadn't been affected by that positive test case, or that hadn't been occupied? So yeah, I mean, it really is a conversation with our tenants to say, this is what the new normal is going to look like, and how can we work with you to make sure that your employees are comfortable coming back? Because that's really the big question. We want them to come back to our offices. That's the whole point of our existence. We want them to come back, but we want our tenants to feel comfortable telling their employees that what they're coming back to is safe, it's secure, and here's why. Here's what we've done, and here's why.
Yeah. We have a bit of a hybrid feedback from some tenants. You have the banks that just want you to sanitize to no end. And so you gonna have to have a duty of care to really kind of fit their criteria. And that's because of risk, right? They're just so risk adverse that they just don't want to have any employee issues. But then you have the other tenants that just say, look, as long as you sanitize where we did have a positive case, et cetera. And then there's also a ton of data that we've seen in the last 14 months with touch points, right? We initially was all about surface, and the virus lives in the surface for 24 hours or 48 hours, etc. Now it's more about aerosol, right? So there's a combination, there's a shift. So how do we find that sweet spot with those tenants, right? And it's really more about doing a risk assessment with each tenant and really understanding what the requirements are. And building A may be very different than building B, and really kind of catering to those tenants and ensuring that our leases are not, they're whole, and that we don't, go against what the lease requires from a health and safety perspective. I think that is really important.
Randy, I'll ask you to take us home, but Marlene reminded me of a little anecdote that I'll squeeze in before I turn over to you. When touchpoint cleaning was really a big focus back at the beginning of the outbreak, I know an asset manager in Ottawa who started getting complaints from one of his tenants that in their suite in their downtown building, the doorbell was constantly being rung, and when they went to the door, there was nobody there. Well, it turns out it was the cleaner cleaning the touch point doorbell, and the asset manager says that I'm going to keep having the cleaner do that, so you guys know that the cleaner's there. You can get up from your chair. Randy, over to you.
That's funny. Yeah, certainly. We've heard our clients clearly. I mean, for property management, proof of quality cleaning, both visible and hygiene, it's kind of burned into everybody's psyche these days about everyone's sanitizing their hands and such, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. And tenant messaging. So, we early on worked with manufacturers of hygiene testing equipment, hygiene on ATP and OptiSolve with their Pathfinder technology, and actually developed new hygiene standards. And in the last 6 months, we've tested 92 commercial buildings, 23 million square feet with both technologies, and the scores aren't good. There's built up biomass that's there that needs to be removed. Average ATP reading was 339, which is right on the border between cautious and contaminated. Similarly, Pathfinder readings were only fair. So, this is science-based decision making, and it did swing fairly widely between buildings at times. But, the new information is provided, when you do this testing to service providers and property managers. And what we found is when we debrief them and show them where it is and do some follow-up testing quickly, they end up getting the scores where they need to be. So now all of a sudden you've got not just improved hygiene, you've got the cleaning quality looking great, but you're demonstrating due diligence, but also you got some great messaging for the tenants.
Yeah, you've got proof, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so yeah, we see the best practices really get the data, get the testing done, get it to where it needs to be, focus on common areas because that's where the high risk elements are, and do about 3 cycles over 4 to 6 months, and then you're going to get where you need to be. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, that's a great way to wrap up this part of the conversation. And I'm going to move us to the next section and open up another polling question. And I now realize that I can see that we actually have 135 live participants. So let's see. I'm not sure if that includes the 6 of us or not, but we'll see how many people can respond to this question here. So if you could please put up the next poll question. So poll number 2, we'll give you a few seconds or 30 seconds or so to do this. Are you confident your cleaning program will deliver the hygiene quality that you need? And the first choice there is not at all. The second choice is we could use some help. And the third choice is super confident. So here's that awkward pause again while we wait for you guys to complete the survey.
Ding, ding, ding. Sorry, Kimberly, I'm totally.
Sorry.
I was totally taking Kimberly's.
That's okay. It's over to you. Happy to relinquish.
Go ahead, Randy.
Well, I was just going to say, what we're finding on the scheduling, because a lot of this is going to be scheduling going forward, when people are actually going to work and where are they, how many of them, and what we're seeing is that it can be regionally challenged with collective agreements. We've got a fair amount of union contracts, and BC has got survivorship and things like that now, and the availability of labor. So I think the contractors are going to be somewhat challenged in certain areas. So I think we've got to keep an eye on that. And then a lot of this really can go into the KPI matrix with, hygiene scores. We're actually testing germicidal solution centers, the cleaning cloths themselves, KPIs with employee training and emergency drills.
All righty, thank you.
Yeah.
Here's the results. So 3% of you, I think the same amount as last time, 3 of you are not confident at all that your cleaning program will deliver the hygiene quality you need. And it's a similar breakdown to last time. A little bit less than half or a third of you say you could use some help, and over half of you are super confident. That's an interesting result, encouraging in many ways, assuming that the confidence is well placed. Great. So I'll just move us on. I should say, I can see there are 9 questions now waiting for us. So keep the questions coming, and we're clearly spurring conversation. We'll get to at least some of them soon. But we'll turn now to Elizabeth, to you, please, to kick us off on the next question. And so, you know, we're talking, Elizabeth, about you guys, owner managers. We're talking about cleaning consulting firms like DCS Global and Randy. And then, of course, we can't forget the cleaning firms themselves and the cleaners. And the question sort of arises, you know, in this new normal that you're hearing about that we discussed for the last half hour or so, who is responsible for what, and how do you coordinate responsibilities and accountabilities as between these 3 parties, not to mention tenants and visitors and others?
It's a great question, but I'm going to give the obvious answer. I don't think any of us would give an answer that's a whole lot different from this, and that is it's a partnership. And if you don't have that partnership with your cleaning contractor, with your consultant, and with your tenants, then it's not going to be successful. So we believe we do a lot of regional RFPs within GWL Realty Advisors. And I'm a big believer in regional RFPs because I think you just get better bang for your buck. And we rely on, shameless plug here for Randy, we have relied on Randy to help us with our last big RFP. And it was a big one. It was a lot of buildings and it was a lot of work. And but I think that you have to have that good relationship between the consultant, the contractors, the tenants, and yourself. I'm also a big believer in KPIs. You cannot see what, if you can't measure it, if you don't understand it, then you can't talk about it. You can't talk you can talk about it, but you can't talk intelligently about it. So in order to do that, you need KPIs. But I'm also a big believer that KPIs are not something that we as the owner manager would impose on the service provider. Absolutely not. KPIs should be something that are built together. The cleaning contractor works together with the consultant, with us, and we all agree, because it has to be a partnership. I've come from the facilities management world where, you know, sometimes KPIs are they're so onerous that they're just not achievable. And that doesn't do anything for anybody. If a KPI is achievable, everybody has agreed on it. There's a carrot and a stick. There can't just be a stick. There has to be something in it for your service provider to overachieve. If you have all of that and you have everyone working together and you're talking to your tenants and you're having those good conversations and everybody's expectations are aligned, then you can achieve something. But it has been interesting the last little while. Some of the work we've done with Randy has shown us where some of our efforts of, you know, we're spending money on making things hospital clean when nobody's in the buildings, or we're not spending enough time on certain areas that, even though there's not a lot of people in the buildings, we should be spending time on. So you need that proof, you need that research, you need the qualitative testing. And at the end of the day, you follow the science. That's two-shot person here, so you follow the science, and you make sure that what Marlene said it, I think, at the beginning. At first, we thought you had to touch everything. It was transmitted by touch, and now we know it's aerosolized, and you follow the science and you do what's right for your tenants, for your buildings, for the owners, for everybody. It's a conversation.
Great answer, Elizabeth. Who wants to respond?
You know, I do agree with Elizabeth on the KPI component. We really do need to measure. If you don't measure something, you really can't, have that continuous improvement. In order to have continuous improvement, you have to look at the challenges and the opportunities, and that's how you move the needle. But it is a partnership between not only the provider, the janitorial company, but it's also the cleaners, right? How do we reward the cleaners for doing a good job, for keeping those janitorial closets clean, for really having those policies, the WSIB certificates, all the cleaning supplies that needs to be done. I'm looking at the what's the cleaning certificate for each chemical? The
DIN number.
WIMIS.
The WMS, sorry, thank you. So it really is rewarding not only the cleaners that have been at the front line in the last 14 months, they have been at those buildings. And so it's a partnership, it's KPIs on the building level, the cleaners, as well as the janitorial companies.
Yeah, I'm in agreement too. You can't create a KPI without having other parties involved in the agreement of it. Otherwise, it just is one-sided. And you need to objectively measure it, because I mean, I'm sitting here in my dining room and I'm looking around going, if this was my office, I would say it's dirty.
People out there that can help you with that.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. Yeah, yeah. And I've got a robot that I'll just set off as soon as this is over after I'm looking around. But you know, when it's your own home and you're looking around, you can't objectively measure what's clean or what's not. So you need to, and I feel the same way about our site folks when they're the ones who are going around and trying to evaluate what the level of cleanliness is. It takes a very special eye to be able to say, no, that's not clean enough, and yes, that is clean enough, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to have that third party who can come in and be objective to help measure that. And I totally believe in the carrot and stick approach that Elizabeth mentioned. Sticks alone don't work. You need to give something so that everybody wins, right?
Yeah, and is there anything more subjective in property management than cleaning? It is the most subjective thing we do, because everybody's got an opinion. And doing something where you're actually measuring and you have actual hygiene measurements, that takes that subjectivity away.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Randy, go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Scott, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that is, you know, our tenants are coming to us for answers as well. And I think collectively we're knowledge sharing as to around the science, what do we need to do, what's really important. And other consultants are also coming into the space because their health and safety committee is advising, you know, what they need to do, aerosols. So there's a lot of stakeholders now that, you know, that want to say are at the table, if you will, around health and safety and cleaning and reporting and standards. So, you know, at one point it used to be, well, here's a task-based cleaning schedule. You know, I'll see you, you know, at a quarterly meeting. Now there's a lot more active engagement and sharing of information, just so that we're, you know, the collective good is being achieved with inside the building.
That's great. Randy, over to you.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time, obviously, with the increased transparency and requirements of cleaning in managing cost. And you know, it's kind of all over the map right now in the market, but we've done a lot of work already. And what we're learning is clearly, I mean, sanitization is important, hygiene testing is important, but it can be limited. And you know that the shotgun approach doesn't need to happen, so you can save money there. Of course, use of occupancy and stuff, but you know, we've developed a hybrid day cleaning. We built on our existing program, evening cleaning, with a focus on visible sanitization, and that way you're not doubling over. And so we know that it's saving money. We tie it with our clean and safe program, and yeah, it's high visible and it's cost effective. So I think that's where, frankly, the market needs to go. You know, again, costs, like I said, right now are really all over the map. And we're seeing three major contract models in the market right now. I mean, fixed price, sure, generally for smaller buildings, you know, the contractor can capture absenteeism, which balances out some of the competitive forces. Cost plus flow through is really growing. And with the larger buildings, gross margins are generally 10 to 15%, depending on the size of the project. And you got to understand, 8% of that at least is pure overhead of the company. So it's still a very competitive business. And then the guaranteed labor contract is gaining traction. Essentially, there's a stated minimum profit. They can go beyond that. And the labor hours are audited quarterly. And there's a flexibility margin there. So there's been a lot of work in sort of getting out of this shotgun approach and getting a handle on cost. and I only see it getting bigger.
That's very, thank you. Maybe we'll put up the final polling question of the afternoon. Can we get that put up now? It's poll number 3. Here we go. So the question to you guys on the audience is, are you comfortable your cleaning program will fully support your ESG goals? That'd be environment, social, and governance goals. Answer 1, what ESG goals? Answer 2, we're working on it. And answer 3, our cleaning program fully supports our environmental, social, and governance goals. And if I'll give you guys 30 seconds or so to answer, please. We've got 138 people on the webinar right now, so we'll see how many have an opinion on this topic. Just bear with us another moment, and I'm sure we'll get the results shortly. Here we go. And the results are 10% say, what ESG goals? That's an interesting response. 39% we're working on it, and 50% the cleaning program fully supports their ESG goals. And it's interesting to actually get the percentages and the numbers actually almost match the raw numbers as well. So let's take that as our jumping off point. I'll just close this up myself. Marlene, to you for our last question before we turn to some audience questions. ESG definitely remains top of mind for the industry, but I think it's fair to say that maybe there's been a little more focus on the E than the S and the G over the last little while. So sustainability and environment has been a big thrust, but you think about equity, diversity, and inclusion, which is permeating our industry and the whole wide world, thank goodness, and other thoughts. How do you see cleaning services supporting your broader ESG goals, Marlene?
So no doubt that COVID-19 has really forced the companies to take a closer look at ESG. I refer back to Deloitte published a paper last year, July of 2020, and the title was ESG and the Corporate Purpose in a Disruptive World. And it talks not only about diversity, equality, and inclusion, but it also reinforces health and safety and really asking us to set standards beyond compliance. Companies are no longer being estimated for financial performance. There is an increased awareness for environmental, social, and governance issues that really has taken center stage in my eyes. As tenants are starting to reintegrate, we are all in the CRE world, looking at resilience, preparedness. We're looking at gaining tenants and occupancy trust. We're looking at indoor environmental quality. That's becoming at the forefront, IAQ, public health risk, sustainability procurement. We're looking at labor standards, working conditions. That is all part of ESG compliance. At Triovest, as part of our ESG strategy, we partnered with DCS Global in 2020, and that was to really revamp our cleaning specs, to look at our standards, to really look at cleaning for health. And we do have an absolute duty of care to our tenants, to our clients, to our occupants. And so we are in flux. We're in a flux world. Things are changing, and ESG is becoming the forefront of our business day to day.
Thanks, Marlene. That's very helpful. Responses.
Yeah, I would echo that, because it's also the ESG requirements from our tenants. And I think in the last year, I've answered a few surveys from our major tenants, and I'm sure you guys have all done the same things. But it's just become, it's not something we ever ignored, but it certainly is becoming more and more prevalent on how we deal with our cleaners, how we deal with our tenants, and how we position ourselves as a company. It's an important part of what we do at GWL Realty Advisors, that's for sure.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and I would echo the comments. I think, the notion now is it's not just terms and conditions of the contract of green cleaning or cleaning for health, but how you audit and report on that. So, at one point we issued the RFP, and everybody would send us a great brochure. But now the fact that we're going back and auditing those and reporting on those on an annualized basis, I think has really started to embed the partnership with that service provider.
Yeah, I echo everybody's agreement. Yeah, I'm in agreement with what everybody says. It did feel, I'll be honest with you, at the beginning of COVID, it felt like we threw a lot of it to the side when we were historically focused on environmentally sustainable products. And then all of a sudden we're like, no, we have to kill it. We have to kill it all.
Very true.
Right. So it's nice that some of the products have come back into the market that we can actually fulfill both.
I'm gonna walk away. Remember, we got to kill it all.
Yeah, I had some very difficult conversations with our sustainability folks in the early days. They were not very happy with me, but now they're happier, so it's good.
I remember this is a conversation I had with a sustainability professional who was very passionate about sustainability, who told me that after great introspection, because of COVID, she was doing her laundry with hot water. So there you go. It happens each way. Randy, what you want to take us home?
Yeah, sure. You know, there's a lot of wins, I know, and a lot of pitfalls around ESG with cleaning. I mean, we've all seen in the past, you know, on the news, people getting busted for whatever, illegal subcontracting and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that is going away, which is great. So that social responsibility piece is big. Pay equity, you know, people working shifts that are crazy, 6-7 days a week, things like that. So I think there's a bit more of a responsibility now, at least to, you know, hear your service provider as to that they're, you know, that it's manageable from them in terms of what the expectations are from property management on cleaning. You know, we're also hearing, you know, some senior executives is that property management have differing opinions on how cleaning should be handled from an ESG point of view or control, regionally, even within cities. And it's not surprising, frankly, because a lot of times what property management, what they get around cleaning is from their service provider, when really it's kind of the tail wagging the dog. You know, get a national program together, or if you're a regional company, obviously that also, and build the protocols and the specs and the standards and all that, then customize. And from there, okay, now you've got, you know, you can set out what you expect in terms of, again, ESG and, you know, cost reporting, KPIs, you name it. And I think that's where the control and the payoff is going to be for property management companies. And finally, I'd like to say that, you know, manufacturers and distributors and suppliers, they play an important role. And, you know, even property management, bring them to the fore. Typically, they're hiding behind, not hiding, but they're behind their contractor. But yeah, that whole ISSA group, they've got a lot to offer, and they've got training, and they've got all sorts of things that can actually not only support the service provider, support what we do for clients. So I think there's a lot of collaboration and visibility in that whole group that frankly often gets ignored. But yeah, we're in an ESG world for sure. And so thanks.
That's great. So we're right on schedule to open up to some of the questions that we've received from the audience. And please, we're not going to get to all the questions, but by all means, still send questions in if the answers you're hearing right now are provoking them. And so maybe what I'll do is I'll get to probably a couple of questions, maybe 3 questions, and then we'll wrap it up. And I'm going to give fair warning to the panelists that we'll do at the very end, which I should have said before we started, is just go around the table, the virtual table at the last few minutes of the hour, and have you sort of close off with a word of wisdom, which shouldn't be hard for you guys at all. So I'm going to sort of riff on a question that we got here, because I think it's a super interesting one. The question is, you know, do you anticipate that corporate real estate requirements will reduce as a result of work from home efficiencies? So if I could sort of take that question and just maybe adjust it a teeny little bit, you know, if you agree that the likely future of office workers is some hybrid model where occupancy will on a per hour basis or per day basis of individuals, of human beings, might be lower post-COVID than it was before, how will that play out in your strategy around cleaning? Who wants to be brave and take a first stab at that? And I see Elizabeth's got her hands up, and you look very brave. Yeah.
You know what? I don't necessarily agree that it's going to be a whole new world. I really don't. I think that the more articles I read recently are all around. I hate to say this because we're all on the format, but people are tired of having video meetings. They're tired of constantly having to show up and sit in place and not move and look at the camera. And I personally, I'm looking forward to reconnecting in person with people. So I'm not sure I 100% agree that the world is going to be that different. It's going to be different, let's be honest, but it's not going to be that different. I think that the majority of people will want to, and I'm not saying that, I'm saying this based on what I've been reading, the majority of people will want to have significant time in the office, maybe not full time, but significant time in the office. But I also think that it's how we respond to that, just from a cleaning standpoint. It has changed. I mean, to what Kimberly said at the beginning, we were killing it with everything we had. And now we're kind of saying, okay, let's talk about what's reasonable with the tenants, with the cleaning companies. Let's talk about what's reasonable. Let's talk about what actually works. And let's talk about focus cleaning where we need it, not so focused where we don't need it. And whether that depends on how many people are back in the office, I think I don't know. I am hopeful that more people rather than fewer will be back in the office and will actually be able to talk face to face again one day.
And I think there's a tipping point of efficiency, right? So when we think the building gets 60, 65, 70% occupied, we still have to clean the building. It's not like there's going to be complete floors or complete sections that are going to be empty. It's just they're going to utilize the space a little different. So I think the efficiency rates are going to be impacted with the service provider than maybe a full building. But I do agree the fact that there may be flex working arrangements, but like I say, it's not like it's going to be floors or corners of offices. People are just going to spread out, which means from a service provider's perspective, they virtually have to touch every square foot anyway, except for maybe, those cubicles or those waste bins. So there will be a tipping point, but I don't think it's going to have a dramatic reduction in cleaning costs going forward.
I agree with you. You look at New York, 75% of the occupation has come back to the office. There's always going to be a hybrid model. I think that's what we're going to adopt going forward. But people do want to go back to the bricks and mortar. I think this is how we communicate. This is how we strategize. That's how we move our performance at a corporate level. From a cleaning perspective, I agree with Scott. We have to still clean washrooms, etc. So whether you have a 60% occupancy rate or an 80% occupancy rate, you still have to do those critical components of your building. And I go back to IAQ, you still have to change filters and you still have to do your maintenance. You can't just run half of your system, you have to run the whole building, right? So there is a duty of care to sanitize and clean and run your filtration systems for the whole building, whether you have a 60% occupancy level or an 80%, right?
Yeah, I agree as well. I think you're right. You still have to clean washrooms, you still have to clean kitchens, the common area spaces, the main lobbies, the escalator handrails, all that fun stuff that it doesn't matter whether you have 10% of the people in the building or whether you have 80% of the people in the building. I do think that a lot of, I know we are trying to take advantage of centralized waste. This is the time that we're approaching our customers to say, have you thought about this? Because then it's less obtrusive as far as how our cleaners are managing your space. And maybe that'll end up saving us a little bit of labor, but not a lot in the end. But I agree with what everybody said.
Randy, we'll go to you to clean it up, but I'm going to use the moderator's prerogative to put in my own 2 cents for what it's worth. Not as a working property manager, but it strikes me that that, yeah, while there might be fewer people per unit of time or per square foot in the building at a given time, for all the reasons we've heard about just now, there's still an imperative to clean. But I'd also add to that that the people, when they return, and I consider myself to be very much one of them, are going to be more sensitive to the space being clean than they were in the past, and might notice problems, quote unquote, in a manner that didn't before. Think about hoteling options. Anybody who goes back to a hotel desk will want to make sure that he or she is sitting down at a place that has been not just had the waste paper bin emptied, but feels and is hygienic or sanitary. So I tend to agree with the panelists that there's a whole bunch of imperatives that would be a counter to the trend that you might expect otherwise of a hybrid model. But Randy, take us home and let us know.
Great conversation, and I don't really have much to add other than, when you look at, we're cleaning for human beings, and they're different, and they've got different needs and sensitivities. And I think that's really where you get this interactive model of a hybrid day cleaning, because people like to see it happen. But not only that, cleaners are smart and they know where they got to go. It's the squeaky wheel. And so, they'll be able to adjust, and I've seen it, where the high sensitivity needs are, where the high traffic is, and things like that. So I think that's really, is going to be a big part of the future of how you meet the need.
Great, and I'm just looking at the time here, so I'll probably squeeze in one last question before we go and do our closing tour de table. And this is a question, again, I'll kind of riff on it a little bit for you guys. The question itself is, do you think the period of lowest price wins in the industry is over, with the focus required on technology, innovation, products, et cetera? I guess I just sort of repackage it a little bit and let you guys respond to it, which is to say, how do you balance the need for, I guess, value and not just price, because those are not necessarily the same thing? And is technology, in most industries, investing in technology might have an upfront cost, but it has obviously a payoff down the road. Do you anticipate that to be the case in this industry, where technology might ultimately be an economic advantage, or is it just a competitive advantage vis-a-vis the competition, if that makes any sense? Who wants to talk about the role of technology and price and value? Who wants to put up their hand?
I'll start, if that, I'll be brave. So the original business cases that I wrote around robotics maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, were all about saving labor. And then the realities that we've actually had from I think it's 14 robots that we've deployed so far, is that there has been no savings in labor. It's just been offset to higher valued actions. So Oxford has always been focused on the office side, on the value, as opposed to the cheapest price, because often you get what you pay for. And when you've got a higher caliber asset, you don't want to give them something that's lesser than what the expectations are to the customer. Otherwise, it's not pretty. It's for anybody involved. So, now what's interesting, and I keep bringing up COVID, but it's been a very, very tough time for our retail sites, as you would expect, because you've been closed or they've been closed. And so they have been very much focused on maintaining control of their costs moving forward. And they've just used this as an opportunity to do so. And understandably so, because, as hopefully we don't have a fourth wave, but if a fourth wave happens, then we have to stop the labor from coming in and being able to be managed. But at the same time, we understand that the cleaning companies need to make money. They're businesses. This is not a not-for-profit type work. And they need to treat their people fairly and well, and provide them with benefits and training and all the good things that we need. So I will always toot the value horn over the cost horn, and hopefully even on the retail side, we can swing back to that piece as well.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone says lowest cost wins anymore. Like, I honestly don't. It's just, it's not how you run a good cleaning model. It's not how any good cleaning company would want to win work, I'm quite sure. And it's not effective at the end of the day. You genuinely get what you pay for. And, you know, these are human beings. We have to be treating them well. We have to make sure the cleaning companies are treating them well. And, you know, that's where it all stops for me. These are people who are providing a service. They deserve to be treated well. They deserve to be paid well. And you need that relationship with the cleaning company to make sure that that's happening.
Let's get some quick thoughts from anybody who hasn't spoken yet, and then we'll do the tour of tab. Scott, please.
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, it's not just an isolation of costs. I think it's a total product that they're presenting. When certainly in Ontario, with the reliable, you know, staffing costs are from one company to another are maintained. It's their innovation, it's their productivity, it's what are they doing to really deliver the service. Ultimately, that's what the pitch is, and that's what we look at. But it's not, lowest cost doesn't guarantee anything. It's a totality of the package that's being offered.
I agree. I go back to ESG, right? Environmental sustainability governance that a company may have, and it's those labor standards, policies, et cetera. You know, how do they score against each other? And that's one of the driving factors to awarding a contract.
Yep.
Randy?
Yeah, just really quickly. I mean, this is the heart of what we do in terms of identifying value, literally finding mistakes. You know, what went wrong with the bid? We have to identify that. And what we come up with is a risk assessment. So, you know, it's not our budget, but I will tell you that over 80% of the bids that we do not go to the low bid. Now, sometimes they make sense, but usually there's a reason. And, you know, you've got to balance that out with the values. So there's a real set of things we do. But anyways, yeah, that's interesting.
Cool. Why don't we have a couple of minutes left. So I'm going to ask you guys in less than 30 seconds to give a final thought, and I'll just go in the order of my screen. Kimberly, your closing thoughts.
Why am I always first? That's my.
Because you're upper left. That's why.
I'm a believer in value. I'm a believer in collaboration and partnership. I always have been in this role, and I continue to think as the world changes, that just reinforces that that's still so important and will continue to be important. There you go. That's my little nugget.
That's awesome. Elizabeth?
Mine has nothing to do with cleaning. Get your vaccines and treat each other nicely.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Well done. Marlene?
For me, there's a raising demand for healthy buildings, and I think that's the sentiment worldwide. And it's not only about air quality; it's cleaning is front and center. And so we need to be proactive, ensure that we align with our tenants, and we're doing our part.
Scott?
Don't go it alone. You're not in this alone. We're all in it together, and we're all better by sharing knowledge. So that's my advice.
Randy?
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, who knows what the future brings? I mean, this COVID's taught us a lot, and we're still learning. But yeah, I mean, keep innovating, right? And you know, project management is more important than ever, and making sure we validate. So it's a new world, and I just want to thank the panel. I mean, amazing, and it was wonderful. So, and you, Benjamin, of course.
Thanks, Randy. We'll wrap up in just about a minute or so. I'm also going to say that from my perspective, one of the lessons of COVID is the centrality, the higher profile, and the dignity or the worth that we should be giving to cleaners. They were in the background too much in the past, and hopefully the COVID has made us realize that they are frontline workers. And I know that in my own case, I, with her permission, posted a thank you to the woman who was cleaning our office before everything closed down, and I got 30,000 impressions on my LinkedIn post just thanking her. And that was not because it was so beautifully written. It was because it struck a chord as a symbol of the women and men who clean our buildings day in, day out. So give a virtual hug to your cleaner. With that, we're going to wrap it up. I will say that DCS Global is going to be in touch with all the participants with a follow-up email. There have been a couple of questions at the very end saying very good things about the webinar and asking if there's going to be a recording. And the answer is yes, there is a recording, and there's going to be a follow-up communication coming your way. So at 61 minutes in, we're going to call it an afternoon. Thank you all very much. Thanks so much to our panelists, and thanks to Randy Burke and DCS Global for convening us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I